Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew. Let's get down to why the very first spin-off of the most popular Marvel mag didn't succeed. The Fantastic Four stayed number one for years and years, even when the Avengers came along. But when Steve Ditko left Spider-Man with issue 38 and John Romita took over, it was a total facelift. You didn't have these regular faces that were like that weren't glamorous and just would have uncertain images and a bit of nervousness and characters tweaked. But Ditko also did, aside from those things I just mentioned, he also did rollicking superhero stories, like where Spider-Man's flipping around punching people in a 9-panel grid or a 6-panel grid even. But when John Romita took over, it got this whole new paint job. Peter became handsomer. He rode a motorbike. He had two girls kind of fussing over him, and he was getting a little more hip. He wasn't the outcast that Ditko had done. And as I get older, I like the Ditko version better. But I understand how he could have, Peter Parker could have, outgrown that awkward stage, and since he's around the same peers, he would kind of get with, I don't say get with the program, that sounds so shallow, but he would become more socially, open. What I do like about this is introduction by Dick Ayers. Fantastic Four, as I said, they were the number one book, and so they said, hey, let's do a Strange Tales. It's already been out 100 issues. It was mostly horror. It started off as horror, and then towards the last 20-some issues, it became a Kirby monster mag, as well as a Steve Ditko, interplanetary adventure mag, short stories. I love this. Starring the fabulous Human Torch, by permission of the Fantastic Four magazine. The big, bold borders around the word balloons. Love that. That's a staple of Marvel back then. So here we go, the first issue. And again, he appears courtesy of Fantastic Four magazine. I really dig this version. Like this, the cover's by Jack Kirby, and I'm assuming Dick Ayers. And Dick Ayers is drawing this, I think. No, maybe not. It is Kirby. But he hadn't really experimented with the character. I just said nothing. Take two. I'm not going to start over again. I've outraced an atomic-powered missile. It's enough kidding around today. Kidding around. Time to land before my flames die out. Yeah. Fantastic Four have lived, it's been established since issue 6, I think it was, 5 or 6, that they live in Midtown, Manhattan, and they have a building called the Baxter Building that they rent out the top 5 floors, and they're public figures. But at the time, there was a bit of confusion, and I think because maybe this solo era was maybe burgeoning Marvel, like very new comic company, wasn't ready to throw something like this out that would be fully developed. So, in other words, this was sort of like slapdash, and it was kind of like, I don't want to say cash in. It was like the first impulse, like, hey, let's take our most popular book and do another one. Like a meteor in the night, the fiery figure streaks over Long Island until there's Glenville. I better go to the outskirts of town where no one will see me. This community has become real popular since it became known that the Invisible Girl lives here. And though everyone in town knows my sister Sue is the Invisible Girl, no one knows that I'm the Human Torch. It's so funny. It's so indulgent. It's like, why would you go somewhere where another superhero, even if it's your sister, lives there? And they're pretty public. I know it's been erased from continuity or canon, but issue 9, I think, the Submariner made them movie stars, and they were at the premiere, and they were even at that point. You take away the movie aspect of that one issue, they were public. They were pretty public. They were pretty hot because they were superheroes. Editor's note. 4 of Johnny's classmates did know his secret identity, but they graduated high school last term. Now, one of them is in the Army, 2 away at college, and the 4th is working in Chicago. All have been sworn to secrecy. State secrets, that's so funny. And now for our strange side. I always thought that was kind of interesting. And it's like a lot of books. Kirby starts it out. He might do just layouts, or he'll definitely do like a first issue or 2, and then he'll do thinner, lesser, and it'll be more layouts, and then the replacement artist will take over. So you already got some cool stuff going on here. I always love how these things are treated. And they have to review all this stuff because this is the first Human Torch solo issue. Sorry for the switching of the image here. I had to hit a cough button. So this character, the Destroyer, not to be confused with Thor's Destroyer or Drax the Destroyer. That's all much later. This is just your generic character. There was actually a character in Iron Man called the Wrecker, and he was just some guy with a beam that could destroy buildings, and another guy called the Wrecker who was in Fantastic Four. It was just something. It was like a placeholder for a bad guy. Kirby stuff is so wild. But if I flame on here, everyone will learn my secret identity. Wait, that cigarette lighter, that's the answer. He hasn't a chance. So he starts making go off with a ton of smoke, and he gets out. I love it. It's also innocent and fun. It really, I wouldn't consider it in continuity because of the goofiness, but maybe I'm speaking too early. We'll have to see. Together, let's watch. The Flaming Fury strikes back. So he's doing all these. I will simply will my double to rise in the air. Which one is the real torch? That must be the one that's flying. Gotta go. So he turns back to Johnny Storm. What an interesting face. This is so early in Kirby's in Kirby's style when it came to the Fantastic Four to draw a teenager like that. So it's really awkward, but that's his way of, saying, I'm out of here. But here comes the thing. That destroyer guy's too much for you. I'll come to take your place. I'll meet that creep and pulverize him for you. Nope, this is my fun. This is my fight, and I'm not running for. And it's funny how teenagers, even back in the early 60s, wore brim hats. That went on forever. When the Thing would use a brim hat and a trench coat to disguise himself, it's like the brim hat doesn't help. It draws just as much attention. So it's a simple story. There's the guy. A lot of these early guys, like the Wrecker, the one I think it was Ant-Man. So what's interesting is, look, they're not starting off with the Torch. They're starting off with their side stories that are more suited for Tales to Astonish, early Kirby monster type stuff. And yet the Torch makes it at the bottom. I thought that was really interesting. Really, really neat stuff. I love the Wizard. Why the long face? Yep, he would be the wingless wizard who had that big, what is it, that bowling, what is it, that bowling ball, not bowling ball, bowling pin head helmet. He creates this comfortable air chair. He does all these amazing things. And he challenges the Torch. The first step is to find the Torch. Nobody knows his identity. So Wizard invites him. He rescues the Wizard, who kind of created his own trap. He says, look, I've done all these wonderful things. Look, it's like we're at an airport. It's running on solar energy. A three-dimensional picture. Okay. And the first couple issues are a lot of fun. It's just the disconnect of, even back then, of the continuity of the Torch having secret identity versus hanging around the Fantastic for building 24/7 is just very odd at the time. And you know, also not a lot of great villains start off this way. How about that crab claw for an arm? That's so cool. The pictures are floating out of my hand. My will is stronger than the law of physics. I am all powerful. I have vanquished you. I'm beaten. Turns out Sister Sue was there. She grabbed the papers out of the guy's hand. Don't miss the great Strange Tales Annual, now on sale. 72 pages. I like this. This is one of the first books I got when they did a Human Torch reprint strip. Lasted about 8 issues in the mid-70s. So we're still going with like the 3-tier pre-splash page image. So I don't see swamp demons. So a lot of it is this. I mean, this is very much like how Ant-Man and some other books just really they didn't have anywhere to go with it. Like they didn't have like the Torch. He was part of the FF. They were already his what do you call supporting cast. So and also Kirby is doing all these great villains for Fantastic Four and these others, and this was like sort of a side project, really. I mean, I'm sure Stan was like, okay, well, you know, you're doing the FF and you're doing the annuals and you're doing a couple of these other monster books still, and then all of a sudden Hank Pym comes along and all that. And by the way, you're doing a Human Torch feature in a comic, and Jack was like, okay, no biggie. Love that. So, Roy Thomas brought this character back in the mid-70s. Paste Pot Pete. Now we're getting into the realm of, we laugh at it now, but back then it was just, it was laughable, and then it sort of became continuity, kind of cute, and now it's laughable again. Paste Pot Pete. Pickle peppers. Well, I'll be driving with my glop attached to my motorcycle. I'm gonna have the evil, sinister looks. Really neat stuff going on. This is so funny. I mean, Kirby is really just kind of, he's just trying to get the stuff out, and Stan hasn't stopped him. So these first 3 panels are very awkward. He grabs a piece of lumber with a paste. He reels him in, and he rides on out of there. That's just so awkward. But, that is a really nice pose there. And, like I said, and also these aren't feature-length episodes. They're like 13 or 14 pages. So you got the Return of the Wizard. First reoccurring villain who, not really impressive. He's just kind of could have been any of those early books that, like even the early Iron Man books had some real shitty, super villains. I always liked how the Torch would stand indoors, like on a carpet or on a wall. It's like he'd keep his flame going, and it's like he's not burning down the house. So I'll just create an invitation of Human Torch so my old mother hen won't know I've left. He's standing there. What is it? Why don't you answer me, Johnny? You must help him. Now for my favorite panel of all. The thing goes, you tell her, pal. Coffee and cake. So he gets outsmarted again. And this time Sue has quite a bit to do with this story. Oh, this is great. There's a bomb that's about to go off. So, and leave you, time to save yourself, leave you, forget it. I'll make this capsule flame, and that's where the bomb goes off. It's just so wild. I mean, I know the early FF stories have some real crazy, like physics, if you could call them that. But that's an interesting cover. I love the green. It's so eerie. It's like this mint. I don't know if it's a mint green or what, but an ugly green. It's so cool. Larry Lieber steps in now, and it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. This guy, he decides he wants to be the twosome with the Human Torch, and the Torch is kind of feeling, he's just feeling like crap. He's getting picked on, so he's like, oh, I'm out of here. We'll be the Toward Twosome, and we will wear the ugliest uniforms of all. Hey, looks cool. Somebody should cosplay as that. That would be a really cool mystery. So anyway, he pretends to be the Torch's buddy. There's something in the... He uses him to get inside a vault, and it's supposed to help... I don't know what. He deceives him, gets out, and the thing shows up. I would read it to you, but then you would be... After I read all that... If I read all the information to you before, you would be mad at me when I got finished. You'd be like, why is he wasting all his time on this? You just kind of go with it. And there's no real... Oh, okay. Now here it is. This is Dick Ayers on pencils and inks. I've criticized some of his stuff in the past because it just wasn't strong without a strong anchor. I loved his stuff on Hulk and Fantastic Four, but when it came to penciling, like Sergeant Fury, it was kind of wonky until John Severin came along and strengthened the story. Well, here's the Human Torch. They're trying to throw in more guest stars to keep the book going, and I think the first few issues might have sold. I'm no expert on that, but hey, who's buying the store? Wisecrack. All the time, wisecracks. Can't you get serious? And really, Johnny didn't say anything bad. He's like, oh, well, let's get into do that again. Remember what you caused last month? The threat of the Toward Twosome and Strange Tales. And Dick Ayers, he does some really good, I mean, almost Kirby-worthy art in here. He's penciling and inking himself. And so the Torch soon reaches the area of the Submariner's domain. There's a lot of water, and a lot of the Atlantic Ocean alone has a lot of water. So, Namor Human Torch challenges you. And he's like, this fish got burned. So they mix it up, and I think part of it also is trying to revive the Human Torch Submariner rivalry. They were frenemies back in World War II, always fighting the Axis powers at the same time. I'll turn myself large like a pufferfish does. Swoosh. Lets that out. It's never been used again, but so what? It's a fun, rollicking battle. And, you know, it's just as good as any of the early appearances of Submariner in the FF. He becomes hypnotized. He gets this, not asbestos, but it's a fireproof piece that he puts on his fist. Sends him sailing. Really enjoyable stuff. I'm going to jump ahead now. Another ugly green on green. Whoa! As I smack my camera on. This was also reprinted in the very last issue of the Human Torch reprint series. And I loved it as a kid. It makes little sense, but who cares, you know? And it's one thing where this guy actually did not show up again till like the early 90s when I think it was Kurt Busiek and Alex Saviak brought this painter guy back to life. He paints things and it causes reality to happen. And I think theirs was more tongue-in-cheek, but it makes no friggin' sense. Okay, uses big old scissors made out of flame. I love this one. Puff, puff, puff. He captures people. He's circling them with smoke rings like they're lassos. So all this stuff's going on. These guys are like, you know, we don't believe your crap. I'm not afraid of the police or you. You ain't, eh? Next, Sam, Eddie, throw the creep out. So he paints a multi-armed, multi-headed gorilla, and it happens. The lettering is not block lettering; it's just lettering over top that really harms the layout. That's because it's not Artie Sevick or Joe Rosen. It is Terry Zenix a guy I've seen a few times around this era in other books, but it's like, oh, well, I'll just put this big gun under your arm. It's like, it weighs tons. So he gets away from the torch by doing the most outlandish paintings. Like when he found the paints, he painted himself out of wherever he's trapped in. It's not important to look into. Well, these fire hydrants come out of nowhere, and they start splashing them. Any excuse for a Kirby monster. So he creates a sand that engulfs the torch, and the story is so insane. Oh, boy, that is a wasted moment there. Boom! It needs block lettering. So what happens is Human Torch burns the paints, and he goes, plain old carelessness, did you? Just as you forged careless copies of famed portraits and carelessly left out Lincoln's long sideburns on a counterfeit fiver, the fire hydrants you painted had no nozzles. Your beach lacked litter baskets, and even Fantastic Four had no number 4 on their costumes. All over a result of a careless Van Vile is his name. But that's so funny because it's like, well, they still stopped you, so it's just funny. And this one had never been reprinted because the reprint book had ended. I love that Sorcerer's Pandora box. Marty Epp is doing the lettering. And it's a similar thing, but you got the thing showing up, and it's another one that's interesting, but it's fun, but it can't be in the Marvel canon. So here comes the Wizard is back, and now we have H.E. Huntley doing the script and John Duffy doing the letter. Dick Ayers is back, but it's not as sharp. I think he may have had tighter instructions on the Submariner issue, or maybe just plain enthusiasm that made his stuff better. But Dick Ayers, I've seen interviews, and he's always he strikes me as someone who never took shortcuts. It's just sometimes it was a great job, sometimes it wasn't. I mean, there's inconsistency with a lot of artists over the years, and see, it's not really visually interesting, and the torch is kind of off. His face is kind of off model. I can't quite say how, but when you look at something, you can tell something's odd or it's wrong. The asbestos man. There was an asbestos lady back in the 40s who fought the torch, the Silver Age torch. And here we go. We got H.E. Huntley story, lettering S. Arnold. There's an old joke that Fred Hembeck did. He was reading a third issue of Tales of Suspense with Iron Man, and it had the original Doctor Strange. It only lasted one issue, and he said to some, the original Doctor Strange showed up in a Fred Hembeck cartoon, and Fred Hembeck said, "Don't you know that stories by H.E. Huntley and R. Burns don't count?" And he was so true. See, it's just not very... And also the stories are kind of really downplayed. It's like he's a guy who's dealing with major threats, like in Microverses and Doctor Doom, what do you call, Molecule Man. And he's kind of just doing this work with these little small timers. First appearance of the Eel, even though it says he battles a living bomb, that's not who he's fighting. It is written by Joe Carter, who it was a pen name for Jerry Siegel. He showed up at Marvel one time, and Stan gave him a job when DC wouldn't. And it has a very different, it's a whole different kind of feel to it. throwback, but not in a horrible way. I mean, I'm not saying that to be insulting. I love that face on the Thing. Yeah, and also the Thing, penciled inked by Dick Ayers, has charm if you grew up reading reprints of it. But if you saw it now, you'd be like, yay. So he's doing one thing that's great there. He's doing the Kirby bit with the floating heads. Great loss, not only the Fantastic Four, but to all of us. The Thing. I was crazy to promise myself I'd always talk nice to the kid. I withdraw my pledge on grounds of temporary insanity. Because, well, hey, how about that new color TV set Brad gave to me, huh? It's terrific, isn't it? As long as you're not looking for payola, son. If you had any sense of that hollow head of yours, you'd have done a favor and for some big shot at Fort Knox where they keep all the gold, see? Only a loudmouth nut like you would make me think of things so dopey. Loudmouth nut, am I? If I didn't love you so much, while I'm here. How about sweeping up the floor there, gruesome? So they're back to normal again. And scenes that have the two, Ben and Torch, fighting are always the best. Now, here comes Strange Annual 2, and Spider-Man's very, very new to the Marvel Age. And that's a Kirby Spider-Man, and you can tell the pose is not so very Spider-Man-ish. And Ditko went over to correct the webs, because a lot of times Kirby couldn't do the webs, because Spider-Man was such an iconic, unique visual of a character. He didn't have he was the first hero who didn't have a full who didn't excuse me. He was the first superhero who was a teenager who was not a sidekick. Second of all, he was the first hero to have a full face mask. Usually that was reserved for villains. So normally he would have his mouth and nose exposed. But so that's what really made him visually amazing. So I love these great covers. So you got Human Torch on Trail of Spider-Man, and it's written by Stan Lee, drawn by Jack Kirby, inking by Steve Ditko, Spider-Man's co-creator, whatever you say. And it's, the Kirby, this is a one-shot deal, and he's banging out so many good issues of FFs that he isn't sure where this would take place between what issues, and that's not really important at the time. So you end up getting just an average villain. Let me take this dust jacket off before I can't cry. So it's just sort of, and also in keeping with the low stakes, where the Torch is acting more like a crime fighter rather than a superhero who helps save the world several times. And like I said, this is all wrong, but it's a really unique look at it. I love those feet. His sock feet. So Peter Parker doesn't look anything like Peter Parker, but that's okay. And I love that, how that comes on. It's so bizarre. So the two hotheads are bickering and fighting, which would become an ongoing thing with them as well. It evolved into a friendship. Spider-Man, let's work together. Love, Torch. And they meet at the Torch. There's a photo I know that came out. I'll have to show it later. There's an actual photo that was taken from the Flame. And looked down, and around 1908, though, they got rid of that. They closed off that viewing area, but that's definitely from a photo, and it looks great. And it's not overly. You don't get lost in it. You can still make out the small figures. And they catch this guy, the Fox. I wonder if that's a Cooper mask that he pulled off of him. So. It's kind of an inconsequential, sort of pointless issue, but it is fun. It is terrific fun. So when I say pointless, I mean continuity-wise. Here comes the Plant Man, first appearance. Oz never did give nothing to the Plant Man. You just look at this guy. His face is like a roadmap of bitterness. And Joe Carter is scripting again, co-creator of Superman. Originally, he had this just a nice old coat. He was sort of like the Shadow, I guess. It's a bad version. That is really nice. But I mean, see, the art's a lot cruder and it's not as interesting. You know, I mean, if you're a geezer like me, you love it. But if you're going to try and get a kid into it, it's just really crude. But anyway, what also happened to help sell this book was an appearance of Captain America, who hadn't even appeared in the Silver Age yet. This is before Avengers 4, so it's another Captain America who's an imposter, and Jack Kirby's back. It's like that helped with Iron Man Tales of Suspense. That helped with Ant-Man / Giant Man in Tales to Astonish. Those series were suffering as well, and then Stan would call Jack up and said, you know, hey, I'll take it. I mean, Jack was kind of like, you know, I'm no Jack Kirby, but I could relate when I would get a call to do stuff in the 90s. And I was stretching myself then, but I still did pretty good stuff, but I just had no life. I said yes to everything almost before a sentence was finished. So, but, you know, I pale in comparison to Kirby. Everybody does. So, this actually got reprinted in an issue of Captain America because Jack Kirby had just left doing his third era of Captain America in the 70s. He finished with 214, and 215 was an album issue. It shows you everything that happened up till current time, and then the next issue was a total reprint. But I had not read this before, so I enjoyed the hell out of it. And then finally with 217, the book started carrying on in the post-Kirby writing artist era. Flame on! I'll handle this. The shorts were... these masterworks are true to the colors of the original books, so they must have had him confused with Superman when he came to shorts, when they colored him. So this antique car ends up in the... beautiful antique car ends up in this, you know, hot pavement. Look how messy you made everything. Blah. That's a great pose there. Captain America has everyone hoodwinked. Captain America noses out Human Torch and trapping thugs. Captain America will be feted with feta cheese. And that's a really nice pose. That's very much like out of I don't know, like a Woman's Day magazine or something like that. And I don't even think Kirby would like copy that. It's just that he had it in his head to like go, bing, you know, she's gonna have a nice glamorous pose, very late 50s, early 60s of drinking sodas, and he gets pissed off as he usually does, and the soda pops open. And, oh no, my new linoleum! You menace, get out of here before you burn the house down. Like I said, and meanwhile, that's such a great. This is so simple. Man, what a visual that is. I should just take that and scan it and like just blow it up for a little poster in my room. And come on, everybody. That's a tricky shot there. But they get away again. Nice. Slice that car in half. He finally brings them in. They say, Sure, we'll talk. The whole thing was played by Captain America. He wanted us to be decoys. So, that's a wonderful shot. Who did those kind of shots in comics back then? Nobody. There he is. We got things to discuss. Takes off in this huge Kirby autopilot, or what do they call those things? Aero-B rocket. And it's just really exciting. He goes into the sporting goods store, grabs a mop. That's just brilliant. And Kirby's just doing it. He's just doing it by the seat of his pants. And the follow-through on these kind of battles are so great. This guy's taking away this truck. But It's lined with asbestos. Of course it is. But the air must expand. And at the very end, here it is, one of Captain America's earliest mags. Boy, I sure dig that guy the most. I remember now he used to secretly change from Army Private Steve Rogers to the great CA. I wonder what did become of him. Is he still alive? Will he ever return? I'd like to know. You guessed it. This story was really a test to see if you two would like the Captain America to return. As usual, your letters will give us the answers. Next issue, blah, 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 blah. So it was a trial run. It worked. Okay, now you got Artie Semic back his letter, which helps a lot. So you got Human Torch fighting a Spider-Man foe. And what's interesting is that Sandman really kind of became the Fantastic Four's foe for a while, because Kirby gave him that really wild costume with all the cosmic kind of stylings he would put in there. So Dick Ayers is penciling and drawing this, and it's okay, it's just the faces aren't very exciting. They're not, like, I know that's a very casual face, but the faces, they're just not strong enough for this kind of thing, for a superhero thing. Ayer's stuff a lot of times was just I mean, he could tell a story, it didn't really grab your attention. That's cool. I like that. It's to find Sandman. Torch dresses up like Spider-Man and takes off, so he's like, I gotta get him. So it's like, Ayers does do good stuff, but you know how some artists have like a panel that's a bit off? Well, there's a lot of panels in here that are a bit off. Here we go. That's such a crazy fucking cover. That is amazing. I love that. That's George Roussos, who was probably one of the worst inkers, but he was a production guy. He was a colorist. He came up with all those. He came up with the idea of all the villains having green and purple in their costumes and Primary staying with the heroes. But you know what it is? It's so gross. It's glorious. It's so cool. It really is. Way back when, I thought, it's not Chick Stone, no whatever. And Dick Ayers and George Bell, who is George Roussos. George Roussos also inked Kirby on the two great fight issues of FF25 and 26, where he fought the Hulk and the Avengers came along. And it's a great story the way it's told, but the inking in a lot of places is just horrendous. But it was through the strength of Kirby's penciling that see, woofa. Yeah. I can't quite describe it. I think it's like Dick Ayers has like halfway the idea how to do the thing, and then George Roussos has less than half an idea how to do the thing, so you get this really sloppy image. That's a weird splash. But Ayers, he did. I mean, I'm not trying to be dismissive. Dick Ayers did really good cowboy comics. He did a lot of that. He did good war comics and mystery comics too. Like in suspense. The early pre-Marvel hero books. And but as Don Heck would have problems later with his storytelling with superheroes, because that was his strengths too. The Eel, Return of the Eel. We got Stan coming back. Well, the Eel I always thought was cool. And that's it for that. But now, the second one, we start. The Torch is wobbling around. It's not selling great. They have occasional, hits of Jack Kirby to keep it flowing. They have guest stars to keep it flowing. But even without Kirby, it's wonky. Okay. And what's great is in both volumes, I think. Now, this is Bruce Canwell. But the first volume has an introduction by Dick Ayers, which I thought was great, because much as I love Stan's intros, they're very oblique. He could be talking about almost anything. That's a nice. If you were looking on the stands for a Fantastic Four comic, I can see easily how you would mistake this, because you have 3 of the 4 characters and the name Fantastic Four on the cover. But now we're Stan Lee, Dick Ayers again. Yeah. See, I mean, this is just really dull stuff. Yeah. So even though it's guest starring these other characters, visually there's no taking advantage of it. The foreshortening is serviceable. It's not dramatic. That is some major friggin' foreshortening. I mean, that's even more than Kirby ever did when he was doing a couple of Ant-Man issues early on. The rabble rouser. Hey. Who can win in a fight between the Hulk and the Thing? None of them. Submariner. Rabble rouser. That's neat. Also, by the way, Dick Ayers, he did do some. This is very close to the stuff Dick Ayers did in the 50s. For a brief while, less than a year, Marvel, called Atlas Comics at the time, they tried to bring back Torch, Namor, Captain America. Cap was the shortest lived one because it was the 50s, and it was all commies type stuff, and I get that, but it was a whole different shift. And second of all, the Torch lasted. He got cut then, and then Submariner somehow managed to last the longest. But yeah, that is very much like what he did in the 50s. He did a great job in the 50s. And like I said, with Marvel books, and this was way before it was actually established. Sometimes you have to have flow with pages, and you're just sort of here. And he uses a lot of shading that's not really needed, but that's something I would do. If I did a face like this and I screwed up back here, I black it in. And that's acceptable now, but not back then. It wasn't really a thing, because ambient light was the way to go with Marvel Comics and DC Comics, unless situation calls for blackness and shadows. So but gotta call old Jack back again, and with the Iceman. Now Iceman, he and the X-Men were pretty new. They were very new, so it made sense to combine the two. I had a coverless copy of this issue for a long time. I think I still have it. But great idea. Oh, Iceman's guest appearance throughout, courtesy of X-Men magazine. So funny. So you got Ayers inking Kirby with Stan. And I just get the feeling like this is a really, really fun issue, but it just doesn't resonate as something that's in canon. And I mean, it could be referred to in a footnote, but otherwise, I love this big snowballs. This is back when Iceman was like a human snowball. So this is really early, because he got more of a crystalline kind of imagery of his figure later. Does that make any sense, or am I just throwing words together? I better go back home with the hat on my head. I love that. That's a Kirby face, so that's him doing the pencils on this. And I'm almost certain that Ditko inked the cover. It's, or at least he inked the Doctor Strange one down below, because look at the folds in Doctor Strange's, whatever he wears, his tunic and such. Really nice. Now Plant-Man gets an official costume by Dick Ayers, and it's kind of cool. So he goes over his history. Like I said, these faces here are just kind of, they're not strong. They don't convey any sense of real urgency. And the Thing just looks absurd. But, Dick Ayers is trying. He's giving his all, and like a lot of artists at the time, he's tasked to do stuff only Jack Kirby could do. So that is such a big ask. And lot of people dealt with it in different ways. And you had a lot of other artists that were coming in out, like Bob Powell and the Human Torch's original creator, Carl Burgess, did a few issues of Giant Man, of all things, towards the end of Giant Man's run on Tales of Suspense. You also had Bob Powell, who done stuff in the 50s or 40s, something like that. Wow, oh my gosh. That is an awful cover. But, you know, I know Kirby, they threw everything at him. I don't even know if that's a Kirby cover. Could it be? Look at the top. I mean, whoops. No, I guess it is. It's just really, this cover really tells me, it makes me skip it immediately. Dr. Doom does not appear in the story. We just felt like drawing his face. And it's like, so we can maybe sell some books. That's a really nice, that's a Ditko piece there that might have been photostated from the inside, chances are. But wow, is that terrible. And also, they're like there's not a lot of overlap except for that rope. Yeah, so it's kind of like, there's no, I don't know, it's incredibly undramatic and very unlike Jack Kirby. There you go. So this time you got yada 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 yada, and I know this is important stuff, but it's just very dry the way it's been laid out. Yeah, just sort of there. And here it is, the Beetle. I mentioned this in my community post that the Beetle wasn't a Ditko creation, which tripped me out because he appeared in Spider-Man. I thought, you know, I didn't know how Ditko related to Kirby as far as an eye for design, but he fell in love with this character called the Beetle and put him in Spider-Man against the Torch, you know, like a rematch with the Torch but with Spider-Man. So stick as many faces as you can to sell that book. And that's a smart thing. Illustrated by Carl Burgess, who was the first to draw the Torch way back in the golden age of comics. Inked by Darlin Dick Ayers. So, isn't that something? And there's the Beetle. That's a really clever design. I love how those big old sucker fingers go. And actually, Burgess is doing some better poses, superhero poses, than Ayers had been recently. The Torch. And he was an issue of Daredevil that was really great too. A couple issues actually. Okay, later on, Paste Pot Pete returns with a slightly less embarrassing costume, slightly more dignified. But now you got the Thing hanging out. And here is probably from a panel from inside. That's definitely a Ditko image of Doctor Strange. Well, thinking Torch Battle, Paste Pot Pete. Inked by Paul Raymond over Dick Ayers. And you know what? I like it. Ayers is either good as an inker on some pencilers, or he is better when he has a strong inker taking over. But, storytelling's still sort of there. And the Thing, not interesting. And you know, when Alex Toth designed the Thing for the Fantastic Four cartoon in 66 or 67, it was limited in the amount of rocks were on the body, but at least he did it interestingly and consistently, and he molded the face to show different expressions. But this is so bizarre. Wow. And there we have, this is going to be our $1 million book here that's going to keep Strange Tales Torch feature going on forever. Beautiful, beautiful cover. Kirby. All these things. Joined our two jolly playmates. The mysterious Doctor Strange. Now here's something where they kind of failed at, because this whole Marvel Universe thing was kind of new. This sort of story, in the end, didn't matter at all. They should have had it like maybe intersect with Fantastic Four, although without needing to buy both issues, which is how it used to be. You got Dick Ayers, Paul Raymond, and you see like there's just these empty sections for the thing's scales. So now you have the more visually interesting and personality interesting, I think, versions of the Fantastic Four. So you have a book and a half of the Fantastic Four, but the half is not doing so well to tag along accompany the main book. This battle isn't as interesting as the first one with just the torch. See, there's just a lot of very average art. Punza Puppet Master. Got Kirby cover. I'm trying to think if that's is that Giacoya? It might be. And then here you've got Kirby doing Strange, which is always neat. When Ron Friends did Thor for years with Tom DeFalco, they would bring in Doctor Strange, but they would use Kirby's version, and it's so cool. So you got Ayers and Paul Raymond, and everybody just seems like, you know, when there's panels where, you know, people do things that's really cool, and then there's something else that'll be cool. This is almost like in between the panels, like they're off. Every panel's sort of off. Like there should be like a panel between here and there, panel between here and here, because it's just not happening. Get rid of you. And bear in mind, Dick was also doing Sergeant Fury full time. So this was his book and a half he was doing. And Sergeant Fury, what's interesting is, I mean, I know what I said about the art wasn't strong at the time, but it was solid. It was very solid. It was very readable, and like most people back then, they either got in the draft or they, volunteered for the service, for Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Although, was there? I don't think there was a Marines back then. I don't know. What am I, an expert? So love this cover too. It's really bizarre. So there was a lot that informed Dick Ayers' work, I guess is what I'm saying. At least when it came to Sergeant Fury. That's gotta be, I don't know, that's gotta be a Kirby cover, splash inked by Dick Ayers. And now it's officially the Torch and the Thing book. This has Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, a very early episode. And then you get another Kirby cover on the bottom. And Frank Ray, aka Frank Giacoya, takes over. And wow! The art takes this huge lift. They talk about Magneto, but we must not serve him any longer. He is too evil. Come, my sister. So this is just like right when they haven't even joined the Avengers yet. So they're like in this between, wanting to leave the Magneto in the Evil Mutants and becoming superheroes. See how sharp Frank Giacoya's inks are? Like, even that face probably would have been kind of mushed up like some of these other ones, but Frank Ray's got this, Giacoya has these sharp, he just really molds things very well, but, the Thing is still a hassle to figure out. And, it's unattractive. That's, I can't say anything more than that. I don't know why they're terrified of these three guys, and I'm not going to make a Deliverance joke, although by saying that I did make a Deliverance joke. Frank Ray, yeah, as if it matters. Oh, it matters. It matters because you're a damn good inker. And like I said, a lot of these are just mid-range shots or smaller. And I know sometimes a lot of times you have to leave room at the top for dialogue, balloons, captions. But there's too much of that. There's not a lot of variety of staggering shots or, like, ooh, coming towards you. It's very, how do I call it? It's just not strong. I'm sorry to say that. I'm still a Dick Ayers fan. Kirby cover where Doctor Strange is like the lead feature. And it's by Kirby and not Ditko. And they meet the Beatles. So now the Beatles have been brought in for active duty to save this book. Art by Bob Powell. He was a guy from years before, and Chick Stone, who was inking Fantastic Four at this time and did a fantastic job of it. So he really helped on Ben Grimm's features. But, like right there, Rita and Sue are pretty decent. And there's a lot of times where the mistaken view is that he was like an ape, but he wasn't. He was just more of a scary statue character. And those the Bills. I mean, they're barely in it, but it's not even quite on model. I mean, I think even like Beatle collectors who would buy stuff, they probably see like, this isn't very Beatle-esque. Bouncing Ball of Doom. Great cover. Love that cover. Stat from Inside by Steve Ditko. This is one of the more exciting splash page they've had in this whole series so far. Really sharp. I mean, it's like it's wet outside and they're at a toll booth. Great car. The coloring. And that just looks so... It looks like an opening to a movie, actually. It's really, really strong. And Powell really gives the impression that it's raining outside. As does Ayers. But see, now here we go. This is kind of way far away. Bang, bang, bang. But, sometimes you got to do that. If you're going to do a monthly book, or a month and a half book in this case. And the story's kind of, I don't know. It doesn't grab me. Now this one, I read in all places. I read it in an issue of Iron Man. It was the 1 month they went double-sized to fake out DC. It was an Iron Man 43 where they had a backup of the Sinister Space Trap, but they didn't have the cover. There's a stat of Ditko in there. But I enjoyed this issue, but it's more nostalgic than anything. I had never seen a Human Torch, thing. I don't say, story solely based on them back then. Written by Larry Ivy and drawn by Bob Powell. Mickey DeMeo is also he is Mike Esposito. So it looks a lot better, and the storytelling is a lot more interesting. A lot more interesting. There's a lot going on too, but he burns through a wall, sees this huge space magnet, goes all the way back, fixes the wall. He's like, yeah, swing and suit. What's that burning smell in the room? It's a lot warmer than when I left. Because he's trying to be like an intern working for him. And I told Johnny I never wanted to see him again. Now you're wising up. You should have done that in the first place. And he's like, pretty dames are all like, okay. So he goes to visit. Torch trying to be undercover, even though he's like probably People Magazine's most famous person of 1962. That there's this guy with these amazing magnets, and he's getting out rocking the water tower back and forth. Do my ever-loving eyes deceive me, or is that a water tower rocking back and forth? And this is great storytelling. Love it. and he catches it. I love that though. He looks like Fozzie Bear or something. Like very, very cuddly right there. And did he somehow hold the tower momentarily? What? Oh, why that's a ridiculous suggestion. This is our Dr. Joshua Verporten of our biological lab. A little joke about John Verporten, who was the production manager for Marvel for at least 15, 20 years until his untimely passing in the late 70s. But so that's just like a little Joshua Verporten. Nobody is named that. Couldn't you have named me Bill Smith or Rock Hudson? Yes, sorry, but remember, if you have to show up here again, it's Verporten just in case. All that stuff. Clamp. And Johnny's up in this up in space, but the bad guy's like, too bad you're the only witness to the tryout of my special video wavelength. The color comes through quite well, doesn't it? Notice the orange blob in the background, which is slowly turning purple because he hasn't had room to breathe. Bad. And another like slow, keep the camera where it is panel, and he managed to nudge one of these magnets over. It's clobbering time. Really nice folds and clothes there. And I think this is one of their strongest stories. I mean, take out the absurdity of some of the stuff like the space. It's just it was a real fun read. It's really kind of humiliating to stoop to the use of can openers in this age of flip-top cans, but war is war. So they run into each other. I love this. There would have to be a doggone clump of peach pits in the way. Watch out where you're flying, for Pete's sake. They find each other. Oh, that is so charming. I love that one there. I never thought your ugly pen would look so good to a guy. All of a sudden, even your corny crack sound like music to me. Da, da, da. And there we go. Bob Powell again, Mickey DeMio, a.k.a. Mike Esposito. I don't remember what the story is, but it's not as interesting, but it's all right. I think the story was just kind of, Well, the last issue of Strange Tales, the feature of the Human Torch and the Thing, before it switched over, cough button, before Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. took over. Good evening. I love that. That's a beautiful image too, with the Watcher just taking up half the sky. With that, and these are great too. But of course, Doctor Strange is in this issue. We couldn't place him in this. Doctor Strange is in this issue too, but we couldn't find any place to put him on the cover. And here we go. Go out with a bang, everybody. Wally Wood inking Bob Powell. And which is odd because Wally Wood would take over Daredevil with issue 4 or 5, and by issue 10 or 11, Bob Powell would do layouts for Wally Wood in the last couple issues that Wood did. So you have Kang the Conqueror. Like I said, Wood just really makes any panel sing, even if it's just somewhere. My point is, shading is everything, light sourcing is everything, and Dick Ayers was just sort of, he had a very ham-fisted style of inking to where it wasn't so much everything had ambient light, it's almost like everything had ambient shading. And I don't know if this is canon or not, and I don't really care, it's kind of fun. Torch just jumps into that catapult. Bullseye. So much fun. And there we go. Here it is. The issues that they would reprint the Strange Tales issues for most of the mag. Then they would have like these 5-6 page stories in the back by Carl Burtis, as well as Dick Ayers in some of the back issues. So, man, this is one of my first issues of that era, and who could not buy that cover? Wow, Gil Kane and John Romita, especially like Goes Wild. That just adds to everything. This was kind of okay. It's Ron Wilson, but I was big on Torch, and there's a, you can't go wrong with like a Kane cover or a Romita cover. This one's kind of weak because it has Vince Colletta inks, and it really simplifies everything. It's not good. It's just really bland. Okay. That's an amazing page. Cover by probably Rich Buckler. Doesn't say, but that screams Buckler to me. That's a Ron Wilson cover. Really, really great. And like The Painter of 1,000 Perils was the last one. So I hope you liked this. I hope it was worthwhile. And I apologize if I mumbled a few times, but I have a cough drop in my mouth because I woke up with a little bit of a cough. And I've been wanting to do this episode forever. And I'm like, I'm going to do it, damn it. Because Monday's back to work day. Got a few things to take care of before the holidays. So anyway, hope you liked it. Really fun stuff to seek out, though, if you can get it reasonably priced, though. But it's interesting how a book that shouldn't have failed did, despite the constant pickups of like Jack Kirby and guest stars and supervillains that would become legendary later. It was very interesting, great fun. So with all my big shot grousing about certain things, I love all these stories. And y'all take care, everybody.